Every sports fan has an opinion. Well, these are ours. Welcome to Brock and Pep's Unsportsmanlike Convo.
Right.
And here are your hosts, Brock Fleming and Pep Cariotti.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. April 27th, 2021. It is a gloomy-ish evening, but for a week that was supposed to be full of rain, it's been really nice. So
Yeah, right?
Anyway, I'm your host, Brock, and we got P-Dog from the Quebec side, made it back, a cleanly shaven head.
Yeah,
face,
weird.
and wearing a Saskatchewan Roughriders jersey, appropriately so, given this is going to be a CFL-focused episode. How you doing?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. You know, it's I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm starting to feel it this week. I've had a couple of conversations with people about, how you holding up, and every single person has said this second round of lockdowns has been a lot more difficult for many reasons, mentally, obviously, but work wise, and just getting the motivation to get up and plan things with the kids. There's only so much creativity, right? We really take for granted, I think, what schools do for our kids.
Yeah, and Ange and I talk about all the time how fortunate we are, given our job situation, but how many people probably are in tough with the kids being at home and doing the online learning.
Yeah.
She works in a school, she can be home. I work from home, I can be home and still work. But if I was in retail or a frontline worker or something like that, you'd have to make those arrangements, and it's that's tough. It's definitely tough. Wanted to shout out to Big Boss Man Kwame with Cap City Beats. He put this out here. Now, I did not make a very nice thing because now you get half our faces, but it's the Cap City Beats small business advertising program. And basically it's offering a $4,000 worth of value for only $500. And it's designed to help small businesses as much as he can. So what he's trying to do is in these difficult times is have Cap City Beats, the platform, help small businesses. So if anybody's interested, you can email advertise@capcitybeats.ca. And I thought that was a very good initiative. I saw that on the Instagram for Cap City Beats. So obviously we're a big fan of him, the platform, and anything they can do for small businesses is great.
Good stuff. Yeah. Great stuff. I'm always down to help small businesses out anytime I can. When I was working, actually, that was one of the main things we'd like to do year round is contribute and help small businesses. So cool.
Also, I wanted to a couple of things. One, I wanted to give a huge birthday shout out to my mother, who was her birthday on April 23rd.
Yeah.
Show early. I want to make sure that we had got a chance to see her as well. So happy birthday to Mom. I'm glad we had a chance to see you. We went over and we brought breakfast, surprised her. We actually got stopped at the border, and I was like, well, I'm about to eat 7 breakfasts. But, I told the guy, and I had the kids in the car and stuff too, so I wasn't trying to pull any stories like I'm going to work or like that. I was just like, hey, it was my mom's birthday yesterday. She's not going anywhere, whatever. We're just bringing her breakfast.
Is that the Quebec Border Police?
That was, I think it was the Quebec Border Police.
They've been pretty good. Both directions, they've been pretty good. Although, I will say this, they had, 150 people they turned away over the weekend?
Yeah, I'm curious as to what it was, because I really would have figured we might have been sent back.
Well, they released that. It was a lot of people were just going to pick up groceries from their favorite grocery store, or what was it? There was a going to get weed. That was one. That was a big excuse. There was a number of people who just go and say, "Look, my dispenser guy is on Dalhousie or whatever." So, but they're literally turned away. When you get to that light, turn around. So, interesting.
The other thing too, I just wanted to, I don't know, I'm not going to go into a lot of it, but as you know, I've in the past, when I was going through some personal issues, I went to it's called a Cursillo, which is like a Catholic Christian sort of men's weekend getaway kind of thing, where you really get a chance to dive deeper into what you believe in and yourself, all that kind of stuff. But during that process, I've gone twice, and I've met some phenomenal people. And we lost Deacon Dan Caro this morning to COVID. So I know he had underlying health issues and stuff as well. But I just wanted to put out my condolences to his family and to the Cursillo family and to everybody who knows Dan. It was a pretty big loss. It was COVID related. So I heard that this morning. I knew he was going through a tough time, but thoughts and prayers go out to him. At the same time, another group of people that I had met through Cursillo, one being a phenomenal musician. He played all the music during our weekend there, but Richard Ouimet, who's become a pretty decent friend, a guy that even though we don't see each other all the time, we get to hang out and touch base. But his son, Christian Ouimet, is listening today. So I wanted to shout out Christian and Richard for listening. And obviously, they join in my sympathies for Dan's passing today too. But
sorry to hear that, man. Actually, if we're there, might as well. Mike Anderson, we know Mike Anderson.
Yep.
Yeah, we know Mike Anderson. His friend, who happens to be my dear friend Mark Chartrand's dad's twin brother, not twin brother, younger brother. Yeah, so John Chartrand.
Yeah.
So that's Mark's dad's brother. He passed away due to COVID. So again, we underlying issues or not, it's sad.
Yep.
He was a younger brother, and no matter what situation is, when you say underlying issues, it's sad when it's not their time necessarily. So for me, anyways, that's how I feel. So my condolences to once again to Linda and Bernie, who are two wonderful people, tough as nails, but they always keep a good spirit, and they're constantly commemorating Mark in different ways, and through pictures and stories, and I'm sure they'll do the same with John. So my condolences out to them and to Mike Anderson, who actually posted it first. That's actually where I saw it. So yeah.
Okay. Be safe, people.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of uproar, and you're seeing UFC fights with full capacity. You're seeing other countries do things.
That's the States. They're vaccinated.
They're vaccinated. There's a difference. We got to stay strong. I really feel for Ford. I'm not getting into this right now with you, but he's in a tough place. I really feel bad for a guy who's, trying to do the best for everybody from a health standpoint and from our population, but he's not going to make everybody happy, and people are getting a bit restless. And I just think that, anyway, I just feel for him, because it's got to be stressful and when he's doing that kind of stuff. Anyway.
And not a long story, a very short point. An 81-year-old man got his COVID vaccine. He's fully vaccinated. He caught COVID after he got the vaccine. Fine. Didn't need to be hospitalized. Didn't need to go, didn't need actually a ventilator. Didn't need anything. He got sick because he caught COVID, but because of the vaccine, he didn't have to go to the hospital, and he didn't get sick. That's the whole point of the vaccine. It's not a cure. It'll just keep you from dying or going to the hospital. So if you're a listener and you're still on the fence and you don't know how science works, that's how science works.
They need to get more, and they need to open up to younger people.
Yes.
And that percentage is going up. Anyway, we should have Dr. K on again. Give us another update.
I actually spoke with him. I'm going to see him on Tuesday, so I'll mention it to him.
All right, let's roll our sponsor. And
yes. That friendly music is always positive, eh? Selling or buying? Call Tracy Iskander with Roy Lepage at Groupe Philippe Lemay. They have the buyers and the right game plan to find you a new home. You'll get personalized service in all sectors of the Outaouais region. Tracy is fluently bilingual, and with a combined 40 years of real estate experience at Groupe Philippe Lemay, you can rest assured your home buying journey will be handled with first-class care and the best prices on the market. Call Tracy today at 613-324-3781 or email her at tracy@tracyiskander.com. I need to get an email like that.
Yes, I hope, Pierre. And you're going to be jealous of one of our guests today, too, because he's got an email that's very similar.
Come on.
It is CFL time. We are a week away from the CFL draft.
Love the CFL.
And we are fortunate enough to have a CFL draftee joining us today. He is one of the most feared defensive linemen in the youth sports. I watched film on him, and I wonder how I would have attacked him or tried to block him. I don't think it would have been easy. Anyway, let's bring him in now. Alain Simonkinda. You got to choose his walk up. This is what it's going to be. Him walking up on the stage, even though there's no stage. I'm going to make sure you got that. Welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Appreciate y'all for having me. I'm happy and excited to be here.
Well, you should be happy and excited that you're a week away from your professional life starting.
It's a little bit stressful, but I'm definitely making doing everything I can do to kind of enjoy the process. But it would be great if I was able to go to sleep and wake up May 5th and definitely know where I'm going, and then so I can start the next part of my life.
It's an amazing time. It's you're going to have a lot of fun. The stress is great. All right, let's start with a real quick. So for our listeners who don't know, why don't you give us a quick rundown? Like your backstory is pretty amazing to get to where you are today.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you give us shed a little light on that?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Congo. Moved to Canada in 2005 when I was around 8. With my whole family. I got a family of 12. I got 5 sisters, 6 brothers, so a big old family. I
told him it's only an hour show. He can't list them all off.
So I'm just gonna give that number a shout out. I'll probably go through the names. But moved there when I was around 8, and then started playing football for Catholic Bear at 11. I was actually one of the last ones in the family to start playing football, and then from there play city ball with Catholic, play provincial ball with Mines Riders, and then play high school ball also with Franco Cité. And at that point, after I graduated, I went to CJEP, played there for 2 years. I was there for a year and a half. I played for 2 seasons. And then from there, I had a scholarship to go to North Dakota, but I was missing 2 credits because I didn't take English my last grade 12 year because I went to a French high school. And then, that ended up bringing me to New Mexico, where North Dakota wanted me to go and graduate from there so I could be eligible to play D1. Was there for a year at the military school, ball head and everything, waking up at 5 a.m. every day. Was able to graduate with honors. Was on a superintendent's list and all that. And then made my way back in 2017 to Guelph, where I played for about 3 years. I was about 2 sacks away from breaking the sack record set by Michael O'Shea if we would have had a 2020
I was
team.
going to ask you what you were short, because I knew you were just short, but that also was because there was no season in 2020.
Yeah, and also I missed the game.
You weren't going to be in Guelph in 2020.
Yeah, no, at least the game plan wasn't for me to be there. But I also missed a game my first year, so that probably could have played a role in there. But
yeah, because you were averaging what? A sack and a half or 2 sacks a game or something stupid like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Checking out, you had 11 in 2019. You were at, I think, 16 and a half. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
For your career, which is, again, for those who don't know U Sports, you're only playing 8 games. And then
just going to say that's like a sack and a half a game.
Yeah.
It's not 21 tackles for loss. Like,
yeah,
and guy lives in the backfield. If he had he had number 5 for a while. Number 5 or number 7?
No, I had number 5 my first year, number 7 my second year, and then number 97 my last year. So a lot of
was that just mind screwing for the offense, the system, to figure out where you're going to be, then say, you know what, this year you're going to plan for number 5? Fine, I'll be number 7. I'll be 97.
I ended up beneficiating from it in that standpoint, but it wasn't planned. I came in initially. I had number 7 at Champlain, and I wanted to wear number 7. But we had a 5th-year vet that had a great guy, amazing guy, Orion Edwards, and then he was coming back for his 5th year, and he had number 7. So our coach told me that he gonna have it. And then my second year, I had number 7, and then my 3rd year we got a new coach, and then he came in. He said he don't believe in linemen wearing single-digit numbers, so I had to switch numbers. So that's why I went with 97.
So did you say to the new coach in your 3rd year, say, Coach, I spend more time in the backfield than their quarterback. Let me have
at that point, I was ready to do anything for the team, right? And plus, I figured out, at the end of the day, it's just a number. Whatever I do, will speak for itself, and then a number is a way to recognize myself. And then that year, also, we had our names on the back of our jersey, so I figured it wasn't too big of a deal now that I have my last name on the back.
Well, this is a great transition. Because for those who go and Google and watch this tape, as much as I've watched this tape, the pronunciations, give me the proper pronunciation of your name.
So the proper pronunciation is Chimakinda, Lance Chimakinda.
Okay, even I'm saying it wrong then. I say Simakinda.
Yeah, so that's usually the easiest way because that's how people read it most of the time. But I'll take that. But the one thing I can't take is just the Simakinda. That's just like
I'm a kinda.
Yeah,
kinda anything. I'm a kinda going to sack your quarterback. Yeah. All right, let's go. But as we talked about off air beforehand, as long as before your name it says drafted number 3rd overall, or it says sack made by, then it doesn't matter what they call you.
I'm cool with that. At that point, it's a cherry on top.
All right, so we want a little bit of a behind the scenes of what you're going through for the last few months getting ready for the CFL draft. So it's obviously COVID is up in the air. So there's not the traditional combine where everybody goes and all the GMs and coaches are there. The eye test is in person. You get a lot of meetings, a lot of one-on-one meetings, all that kind of stuff that you can go through. Give us what it was like for you during these COVID times.
It was very different. We actually had to submit our videos of us testing, and then the CFL tested it by themselves. And so it was very special. I like a guy like myself. I'm used to training, 2 to 3 times a day for about 6 days a week. And then when COVID came around, it made it super hard. I used to actually go do my first session with Titans, and then go to my second session at a Good Life, and then go home, stretch and all that. But I didn't really have that avenue anymore with the lockdowns and everything. And I initially thought with the whole lockdown and the virtual combine, it was going to help. But the way it ended up playing out, the week of the testing is when actually Ford implemented the stay-at-home order. So gyms got closed, and then I was supposed to actually test. We were supposed to have a testing day with Carlton, and that got canceled. It was actually supposed to be on a Tuesday, April 6th. It got moved on a Thursday, and then the day of in the morning, it got canceled again. So I was able to have to go jump a fence at Millennium Park to go test, and then for the bench, even I wasn't
nobody rat. You did the test, you did it, all right?
It's his career. Come on.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to make sure that, I was able to submit something in. I just didn't want to did not participate. So I made sure to submit everything I was able to. And then when it comes to the bench, I didn't even test for the bench. The benching video I submitted was from about 2-3 weeks ago, because the gyms were closed at that point, and I wasn't even able to get the work in. So that's kind of how it played out. And right now, man, I'm just I'm doing everything I can. I'm able to train at Anytime Fitness, where I train every now and then. And then I got my strength coach and conditioning coach, Joey Kwasniaki from Titan Performance. I'd be sending me workouts, and then every now and then we could get some work in. I take advantage of that.
Look, this is an issue.
Joey's last name?
You see his last, like my last name.
You gotta know.
That's why I went back quick. That's why I made sure to say it.
Went back quick. All right. It's all right. He understands. What were you going to say, Pep? Sorry.
I was going to say that is what you're bringing up is an issue across the board for all sports, is especially youth hockey at the 16, 17-year-old age range, 18-year-old. They're having a hard time providing film for teams. And teams are asking. I mean, in fact, I think they've created an online platform where you could submit videos. And so you got kids doing max bench press. On hockey, it's a little bit different. It's 50% of your body weight, and see how many times you can actually bench it. So they're submitting these videos, but it's home video. So it doesn't have that same feel. So it is. I think it's an issue across the board for all sports. So good on you for submitting something.
Yeah, and I was just happy that I was in a situation where my film did most of the talking, and then I was able to have career with the numbers that I had. It was able to speak for himself. But like talking about the 2019 season, like most people don't know, I had 18 QB hits, right? And that's another thing that kind of pissed me off with the OUA, because like it's a pass heavy team and they get rid of the ball fast. Like we had teams where they got rid of the ball in 1.8. Like for example, we played Ottawa U, our homecoming game. I had 7 QB hits, no sack, just because the ball was being get rid of so early. So that's something.
You do know from an offensive scheme why they're getting rid of the ball so fast, right?
Yeah.
Because the 5 guys up front are like, hey, coach,
number 97
quick hitters, because I can only be a speed bump for this guy. There's a reason for that. So don't let that get to you. Take that as a compliment, and it's going to keep happening. If you keep getting a quarterback in 2.2, they're going to get rid of the ball in 1.8.
So when you say QB hits, hits,
5. Right, y'all got 5 O linemen. We got 3 D linemen. Y'all got fullbacks, running back, and everything in the backfield. It's like y'all like with all that, and like we had teams like, for example, U of T. They will go 7 linemen and still get rid of the ball under 2 seconds. I'm like, damn, y'all really don't believe in your guys that much? But I guess it was a compliment in respect to our D linemen. So I'll take that.
So when you're hitting the QB, and he's released the ball. How many? Do you know? Is there a stat of how many late hit penalties you guys got as a D line, or is that was that an issue?
I mean, as a D lineman,
you get frustrated, I'm sure.
As a defense, we definitely did. But for myself, I only got one. It was actually that first that game against Ottawa U. But I really honestly felt like just the ref felt bad for him, because I think during that whole game, we hit them 15 times, and I had 7 out of the 15s, right? So I guess on one of them, I think it was the third quarter, the ref just felt bad because like it was legit under 1.5. I hit the QB under 1.5, and then the ball had just gone. That was I think it was a sweep or a screen to the side, and then he gave me that. But that was my only one that I got all season.
That's impressive.
Not bad, given all that kind of stuff. I got more late hits as an offensive lineman than that. So, hey, all right. Real quick,
yes, sir.
We're going to be talking to Ken Avrere in a little bit here about the CFL-XFL merger. I want to take your perspective real quick. Are you really following this pretty intensely, or are you kind of like, hey, whatever happens, happens. I'm just getting in there and go, or are you really vested to say, you know what, I'm worried about rule changes. I'm worried about expansions or what's going to happen.
No, I'll be honest. It's more the former, because I mean this whole process of the CFL prep, and then the weirdness of it, the fact that I didn't have the gym, the fact that I had to find ways to get creative, start keeping up with my work and my workouts. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put my head down and focus on this, and then once I get there, whatever I'm gonna get to, I'm gonna have to deal with it. So might as well not even worry about it at all.
Awesome. Our guest, who's after you, said, did Alain just complain about U of T using 7 linemen?
No, it was true though. And like a fullback in the backfield, and still the ball got like it to me. It was like I didn't understand it, because like I would watch some of my homies in the queue, and it's like they're holding the ball for 3 seconds, 3.5.
Different styles of offense for sure.
I wish I had that.
Hey, we got a question from one of our listeners, our most prominent listener probably. He wants to know what your bench was.
It was 23. But my 2019 season, during that off season, I had actually got 28, and that was like early in the off season. So I was actually planning on doing 32, but the way God would have it, I guess he was cool with me giving that 23. So I'm gonna take it.
23. Take it. 6'1", 245 still.
Yes, sir.
Long levers. That's good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. For those that want to see a guy who put in effort, and your diet is what's really impressive to me, because I watch it and I think, how can you possibly? I've messaged you. I'm like, how do you possibly eat that stuff? The food is not for pleasure in any sense of the word with this guy. It's literally, I say, what's on your plate? He's like, that's just like 3 handfuls of sliced almonds with chicken breast and something else. Like, it is.
It's science.
Food is fun. Food is life, and it's not. It's food is fuel, and he thinks of it that way, and that's why he's working like a machine. Yeah. But if you need to follow him on Instagram, I know you have another one, but the one you have is the @AB_Simonkinda.
Yes, sir. That's my IG.
Which, I thought that was a clever play on stuff as well.
Right. I figured I might as well take advantage of it. It's not everybody that are born with ABC as
ABC, and you're that's right.
I took advantage of it.
All right. I think we've taken a lot of your time. As I said, again, off air, definitely want to have you after you get drafted. We know where you're going and all that kind of stuff. Definitely want to have you on and spend a bit more time with you and really feel your emotions on getting drafted and all that kind of stuff. We wish you the best. I'm proud of you. I know your family very closely. And all of Ottawa is very proud. We're going to be watching to see where you land. And last one, if you could choose any team, would you give me one right now?
I'll be honest with you. Not really.
Saskatchewan.
I wouldn't mind Saskatchewan. I actually had an interview with them. So great organization, great place. I played it, but to be honest with you guys, I just want to play ball, right? Especially not having a 2020 season. It don't really matter where I end up, as long as I get to strap up and wear my cleats and ball out. Then I'm cool wherever I'm at, to be honest.
Awesome. Well, we'll be watching. It's next Tuesday. I mean, we'll be on our show, but I'll have the thing streaming at the same time. So definitely be following along. I hope you get a chance to enjoy this moment with your family and friends as much as possible too, even if it's virtually, whatever. Yes, soak it in, enjoy it. And I'm super pumped and excited for the next chapter of your football career, buddy.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
Good luck, man.
For coming on, and we'll get you on again.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. I'll be happy to definitely come back and chop it up. Yes, sir.
Beautiful. All right. Good luck to you.
Good luck.
All right. Let's do the other
kid,
because we're going to be probably, I don't know. I feel like we're going to be going long. I got Ken in the back. He's already asking questions. Love it.
I love it.
Where's my music?
Oh, yeah.
Are you selling or buying? Call Tracy Iskander with Royal LePage and Group Philip LeMay. They have the buyers and the right game plan to find you a new home. You'll get personalized service in all sectors of the Outaouais region. Tracy's fully bilingual, and with a combined 40 years of real estate experience at Group Philip LeMay, you can rest assured your home buying journey will be handled with first-class care and the best prices on the market. Call Tracy today at 613-324-3781 or email her at Pierre's favorite email address, tracy@tracyiskander.com.
Hey, and I think that's the last week for Tracy's promo. So we are booking in advance. If you have a small business or you're a realtor or you've got some business and you want to join in on the fun, why don't you drop us a line, and Brock and I can discuss our packages that we offer. And Brock's pretty good at obvious, as you can see, the graphic part is all Brock, and him and I collaborate with what we're going to say. So you'll get something similar to what you just saw, depending on what you want. So why don't you give us a shout?
Beauty. Actually, I was meaning to mention that earlier. Okay, let's bring on our next guest. He's a 9-year CFL veteran. Pierre has his player card.
I do.
To a little bit longer, but let's get Ken in here now.
Oh, look at that!
Look at that.
You ask for it, you get it.
The card, little guy.
Got
I like.
All right, I'll read the stats, but you can't really read them. But I'll read them out to you guys.
Thanks for joining us, Ken. How you doing today?
Hey, good. You guys can hear me? No problem.
No problem.
You sound great.
Awesome. So you guys are going to talk about your packages if you get a chance to connect with a sponsor?
Yes, we'll talk with our package.
Both your packages? Okay.
Yeah, that'll be our sound clip for later.
I'll leave that one for Brock.
Yeah, that's.
I was on TV long enough that you never actually remember half the things you say until someone replays it back to you. And
I was thinking we should have got you in earlier, especially when Alain was on. I was like, I knew that it would go the whole show if we were getting in, and you start pumping the questions from the private chat, and I was like, oh, this is going to go on forever.
But he's a typical Guelph guy, right? Typical Griffin. They haven't won anything, and they got like 9 uniforms, like Oregon, the Ducks. Right?
That's a very good comparison. In Oregon, I was irritated for the same reason. But
yeah, like how many kids went to school there because they had 7 different uniforms, right? But they don't win any big games. So.
What's his name? Knight. Right, the guy used to go there.
The Nike connection.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, I'm excited for Alain because the CFL draft is a pretty exciting experience. It's too bad we're in the COVID situation where you can't be there in person to experience being drafted, especially when you're expected to be in a first round type pick. But you got to roll with the punches. And if anything, we know that football players, athletes are used to rolling with punches and having to overcome situations. So, but I'm excited for him.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen any projections necessarily of where we expect him to fall. And the CFL, I don't find has as an elaborate projection
no,
as the NFL does. So it's kind of up in the air. And some guys, you never even really hear of until the draft. You say, oh, that's a Canadian that's playing down in the States or something like that, and they kind of get thrown in there. But I don't know. There's something about this kid when I watch him play and just his ability, his motor is phenomenal. If you watch some of that tape, like he gets shot one thing and he's still on the other side of the field getting that last hit on the quarterback that's within legal time. But it's just, you say, is that actually the same guy? Stuff like that, that kind of really stand out. So, obviously, we want to talk about the CFL merger with you because I have some concerns with, I guess, the state of the game and from a Canadian standpoint. Like, I wanted to get your take. Should we be worried about Canadians and the game?
I think there's worry because I think it's a red flag in terms of the financial scenario as far as the CFL is concerned. And what does the CFL get from this? Is it cash? Is that what they need? Are they that desperate for cash? when I was in the league and the CFL merged to Baltimore and San Antonio, Sacramento, Memphis, and all the other cities that we played in, it was essentially a cash grab for the CFL to stay alive. And there was never a discussion about changing the ratio. There was never a discussion about changing the rules. It was just American cities would play CFL football, and that the American players and coaches would have to adapt. And many of the CFL guys, the Americans, end up going to some of these teams. Like Damon Allen had played down at Memphis. A couple other guys were down there playing at other teams that were well versed in the CFL. And the reason why the Baltimore Stallions were so good was that if you look at that roster that won the Cup, even the year before, I think when they lost, it was predominantly all American players, but guys who played in the CFL.
Right.
So there wasn't the same concern back then. We knew it was a cash grab. We knew it was to keep the league alive, but it wasn't a threat to sort of the Canadian way of playing the game. And there's all this angst now and concern that it may change, and you don't want to see Canadians losing jobs. But then again, what happens is now you got a team of national and international players, and now you're going to play a team who's based in the States that's all American players. Now, is there a significant competitive gap? I think there's less of a competitive gap now than there would have been back in the day, because there's just so many really good Canadian football players coming out of Canadian university programs that have really ramped up their game and really developed some great athletes, some great football players.
Well, I had a question for you, actually, just to follow up on what you were saying, that the state of the current CFL, from the optics, like if you're watching a game on TV outside of maybe Toronto, who had a hard time drawing at the gate, maybe the location of the stadium, it's hard to say, but attendance was good. At least visibly, it looked like they were, drawing 20, 22,000. I don't know what Lansdowne fits, but 25,000 maybe. It seemed like from a viewer's perspective that attendance was decent. And so where are they losing money? Where are they hemorrhaging money pre-COVID?
I'd say there's a couple of areas, and immediately off the top of my head, and I hate doing this because it feels like I'm betraying my brethren, but quarterbacks get paid a lot of money in the CFL. When you get a guy, I'd say in BC, like Mike Riley, who's getting upwards of $1 million over a 3 or 4 year, whatever it is, 2-year plan. That's a significant chunk of change. And then you also got to consider the fact that the coaches and the GM, they all get paid pretty good money. And that's part of the cost of running a football team, but the fans don't necessarily take in. And they don't sell as much merchandise. Once you buy a toque, once you buy a hat or a T-shirt, that's what you usually wear to the games. It's not like in the NHL where people have 4 T-shirts and 3 hats, and then they go off and buy a jersey with their name on the back that's going to cost $300. They just don't make any revenue that way. And the TV contract, though a great one with TSN, is certainly nothing compared to what you have in the States. And the idea that, okay, The Rock's going to show up with his people, he's got all this money, and he's going to show up with a TV contract that's going to be worth millions of dollars. Sure, hypothetically, on paper, it would work. But could it work? Will people actually go to games in the States? I don't know, because I played in a lot of empty stadiums when we played south of the border back in the day.
Yeah, and I've always kind of said, as much as Doug Flutie was amazing, and it's still, I think Pierre has some questions for you later on, like choosing quarterbacks, whatever. Flutie's right up there in terms of probably the most dynamic CFL quarterback I've ever seen. But at the time, again, that was the Gretzky, John Candy stuff, owning those teams, and he was getting paid multiple millions of dollars. I think like 2 or 3, I think at the time. And I thought, and that was, grossly different than the vast majority of the CFL players. And I thought that ruined the league to a point, because I'm like, we just can't afford to pay guys that type of salary. And it kind of echoes your sentiment right now with the current quarterback landscape and the contract structures, that it really makes it tough for CFL teams to stay afloat. Now, looking at the merger, what some people are saying is that, okay, the CFL lost like $60 to $80 million in 2020. They didn't get the buyout or the bailout. Right. That their demographic is aging fairly rapidly from that standpoint, and that the media coverage is declining. Like even from TSN standpoint, the media coverage of CFL versus the other sports seems to be dwindling quite a bit, and that the opportunities here are for like possible sports betting stuff they can have, an esports sort of line from like video games and stuff that is, again, another revenue stream for certain sports. Even
Right.
the TV rights, it's 50 million right now, I think, for the TSN one. And they say, if it's XFL, maybe it goes up to 100, 150 million. Who knows what it is? If you're getting multiple games that are US versus Canada, or in the States as well, you get access to the US sort of market. But at the same time, you look back to when you were playing, and you're playing, Canadian football in American cities, and it didn't really work.
It didn't. And if you name the cities back in the day, you go from Sacramento, Memphis, Birmingham, Alabama, Shreveport, San Antonio, Baltimore. Las Vegas it really worked in, I'd say, it was Baltimore. And that's because they had lost their NFL team and they were still hungry for a football team. And essentially it was, they placed all their loyalty in that fan base on the Baltimore Stallions, because they had such a hungry base, and it was the NFL city. And you play in Birmingham, Alabama, and on a Saturday afternoon, and you got a couple of thousand people, and the place holds 80,000, 75,000. So it just didn't capture an audience in the States, and that's the thing. Now what's going to happen is, if there is a merger and you're going to start watching games, and we've watched XFL games in the past, and you see family and friends in the stands, and if a team's not doing real well, you see a lot of empty stands. And from an optics standpoint, it's tough to hide that. And if you don't have people going to games and buying merchandise, sure, the TV contract's great, but I think somewhere along the way, the TV powers that be will say, where's the following? Where are the fans? Because it should be it's an experience. You'll never see a WWE event on a Friday night where it's half full. It's always just jam packed. And I'm not sure if you're going to get the fan base, the following, to support CFL football. You got high school football. You guys know that high school football. I've been down to Texas. I went and saw a Friday night football game. I saw Saturday Oklahoma, Texas at the Cotton Bowl, and I went and saw the Cowboys on Sunday. So,
which was the least impressive?
Well, the funny thing was probably the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, exactly.
The high school football game was Allen High School versus I forget the other team, but it was their homecoming game and it had 28,000 at that game. Yeah. And that was the high. And then you go to the Cotton Bowl during the Texas State Fair to watch Texas Oklahoma,
the biggest rival in college football.
86,000, starts at 11 o'clock, and everybody's drunk at 11:01, and it was just a great game, a great experience.
I want to examine this also from the XFL standpoint. Their product wasn't exactly lighting up the charts. I think they had a decent time slot on a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. They were doing that, which worked, I think, in their favor. But if we look at the first edition of the XFL, it was sort of hastily put together. The football outside of that initial game with the coin toss or the ball flip and the guy breaking his shoulder, and he hate me, Rod Smart, who had a cup of coffee with the Carolina Panthers. The football was awful. Like, it was poor football, and the league folded after 1 year. They were. I don't want to say they were along the same lines this year, because I thought there was some. I like some of the rule changes, but should the CFL expect some of the football rules and rule changes that they implemented this year in the XFL? Should the CFL expect any of those types of some sort of consolation? Like, hey, this is, if you want us, you got to bring our league with us.
I think there's some things you can do, but I think it's more from a player safety standpoint. The way they've changed the kickoff coverage, and there's a couple of things you do from a player safety standpoint. But in terms of gadget plays, the CFL's been around 100 plus years, and you got to look at it and say, we don't have to go to the gadget play. We don't have to go to the gadget rules to bring people in. And when you say that the audience has changed, and maybe the fan base in terms of the average age of a fan going to a game, I've been to pretty well every Red Black game since they showed up. And it's the experience, the football experience, and you don't have to be a pure football fan and sit in your stands for 4 quarters to watch every play to really have a great time. In fact, a lot of people I know go to the games and they don't go near their seats because it's such a great social experience. And I don't think you need the gadget. I think you can just go and have fun. And they've done a great job. Saskatchewan's done a great job. I think football teams need to realize that they are now in the sports entertainment industry and they need to entertain. But do you have to go to gadget plays? Do you have to change the way the game is played? I don't think you do. And I think part of the concern is changing the content, changing the way the game is played. Well, if you look at the way the game is played in the CFL, and you look at the way the game was played in the NFL 10 years ago versus today. Now look at the quarterbacks in the NFL today, and look at the quarterbacks that they're looking at. You got RPO guys, you got athletic quarterbacks. They're not 6'4", they're not 245-pound, rocket arm guys who can only stay in the pocket. As soon as they get out of the pocket and start running, you can use a bus schedule to time them because they're just that slow. Now you're seeing some of these great athletic quarterbacks, and the NFL game has morphed and is closer to what the CFL game has been for a long time now.
Yeah, I think Flutie was a prime example of, didn't have a shot.
Ahead of his game.
Played well, and then ended up down there and did his thing, brought that game, that style to the NFL and was successful until the Buffalo Bills ownership made the dumbest decision they could do. But anyway.
But the funny thing is the connect in there is that you got Flutie, you got Damon Allen, you got Tracy Ham. You got some guys who can do some, Matt Dunn can do some stuff with his feet. They were athletic guys. They weren't considered prototypical NFL guys. And now you look at the way football players, specifically quarterbacks, are being coached in the States, right? It's tough to find, again, that 6'4", 240-pound gunslinger. And a lot of teams think that's the third rail. You don't want that guy because he's eventually going to get drilled. He's eventually going to get hurt, and he's going to be on the books for a multi-million-dollar contract, and he's not going to be playing. It's almost like the way the running backs are drafted now in the NFL. Nobody wants to take a running back in the first round unless he's a stud of all studs, because you can find them later on because you go through them so quickly. And
you're running 2 or 3 main ones the whole season. You're just rotating them.
That's just it. The anomaly was when Atlanta got Michael Vick. So, man, he's a generational athlete. Now you're finding these guys in every draft. Now you look at the top quarterbacks now there that look at the NFL draft potentially going in the first round, and you look at them and say, pretty well all athletic guys. The only guy I have a question about is the Alabama quarterback. I think his name is Mac Jones, only because he's been on such a good team. I could have played quarterback for them, right, and been successful because they're so good. But you all of a sudden you get to the pros, and Brock, you've been there. You get to the pros, and you're doing one-on-ones. In college, you might get one guy, maybe 2 guys to put up a battle. You get a couple of the freshmen or second-year guys where it's you're punching grapes. Then you get to the pros, and all of a sudden, every guy was the big dog on the porch. Every guy could piss real far, and you don't get a moment off in training camp.
Nope. No, and you're right. When you talk about Michael Vick too and those kind of guys, if you look back, if we were to go back and research, we would probably see a ton of guys like Antoine Randall, like a guy, he was the quarterback there in Indiana, was getting recruited there. Like he was that Michael Vick type, but they never got those opportunities in the NFL. So he had to switch to a receiver to switch positions in order to make that, where now you're seeing teams foster right athletes who can throw the ball and can do multiple things. And I think that's where that transition is coming through as well. But we can go back and see a lot of guys who are probably pros in different positions who probably would have been great quarterbacks now.
Well, who in the CFL right now excites you at the quarterback position? I know we've been off for so long. I can't even remember who plays quarterback for some of these guys. But is there a quarterback right now in the CFL that excites you?
Look, Mike Riley's impressive. He's just so impressive because he's a guy who just stands in there and he'll take a shot to win a football game. He's the guy who's willing to go through the door first and get bloodied and beat up to win a game. I really like him. I look at the quarterbacks now, and there's no one that I go, wow, right? Bo Levi, yeah, for sure, he's a stud. He does some great things, but he doesn't wow me. Again, he's the guy who's on a great football team. I like to see some of these younger quarterbacks get a chance to do some things and wow us from an athleticism standpoint. But say there's a guy that wows me in the league today, Mike Riley be the one guy I think out of all of them.
Is that also
Really.
something we should be concerned about from a CFL standpoint? Like,
I think so.
selling the product, you need to have somebody that's a wow factor.
Yep.
And if we
And
don't
I think
like that,
And I think the CFL really missed, coaches and GMs really missed on some quarterback decisions. Here in Ottawa, they really missed on Jonathan Jennings. They really missed on Dominic Davis. I think the Argos really missed on James Franklin. He was absolutely horrible. So there's some bad quarterbacks out there. Teams paid the price for it. Ottawa paid the price for it. The last quarterback who really wowed me beyond Mike Riley would have been Henry Burris. And what wowed me about him was because he was a lot like Mike Riley in that he was a thick quarterback, strong, and he'd take a shot, but he'd put the ball right in the middle of the jersey numbers of Greg Ellingson and Brad Sinopoli and Deontay Spencer. That's what you got to do as a quarterback to win.
That's another guy from a CFL standpoint. You say, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
He had to change positions to get in and to have longevity in Sinopoli. But from an athletic standpoint, he's more athletic than any of the quarterbacks I know that are playing today.
And the advantage he has is that he knows everything about defenses. It took me a year and a half, 2 years in the CFL to figure that stuff out. Funny story. He's talking about the CFL draft. I was drafted 9th overall by Saskatchewan, and Dan Rambo was the assistant GM, and they had come to see us at Laurier, and but they had drafted this guy Jeff Fairholm 2nd overall behind Orville Lee back then. And I think, okay, well, they don't need another receiver, so I'm not going to Saskatchewan. And then 9th pick came up, and it was Saskatchewan. They selected me, and as I made my way to the stage back then, this big venue in the whole bit in Hamilton, Bill Baker, the GM, says, "Welcome to the team. You're a free safety." And I had been an all-Canadian receiver. I was player of the year in the conference. I was a Heck Creighton nominee. I thought I was right. And at first, what the WTF, right? But then I thought about it and said, let me get there. And they taught me everything I need to know about defenses. Because in college, quarterback would look at me all panicked, 2nd down and 10. What do you got? I want to run a corner route this time. Score a touchdown, right? Because there's only in college, there's 2 or 3 guys, 4 guys maybe on the field that you worry about. So, but you can't get away with that. All of a sudden now you're dealing with guys who are from big schools, and you got to learn how to run routes. And I got that. I realized athletically I could compete. That's the big thing about Canadian kids. They go to camp, they think they can't compete because they're Canadian. No, you can compete. It's not that. It's knowing the scheme and knowing what to look for and being able to slow the game down. So I come out, there's a free safety, there's the body language of the will linebacker. Okay, where are we? Are we on the right hash? Is it 2nd and 7, 2nd and 9? Is it 1st and 10? Okay, well, after watching film, the safety will do this, but then watch out because of the rotate and try to fool you. All these little things that you had to figure out like that. The play itself was easy to run if you can figure out all the tails of the poker table between the play that being called in the huddle and the ball being snapped. And that's where you become a pro.
Invaluable experience. That's amazing.
Yeah. And also be able to find shade in the middle of Taylor Field in Regina during those hot days. And Milson Jones and Denny Ferdinand and Timmy McRae, the running backs, taught me how to find it right under the goalpost at a certain time of the day. You can find shade and just hang out there.
What was the worst turf you played on? I mean, there were some pretty hard surfaces back then.
That new turf that Saskatchewan had that year was like a salt base, and it wasn't that great. It wasn't that great. It was one of the first turfs where they had some kind of an ingredient, sand or salt, so that anytime you stepped or stuff would be kicking up. It'd be all over the place, all over you. So that one wasn't bad. But the worst probably was Ivor Wynn, because all they did was kept painting the lines and the logos. So you had to really run with your feet up off the ground because you trip on it. I remember I caught a quick hot route and nobody was near me. And I was going to the end zone. And it was the actual line marker on the field that tripped me up. And right in front of the Winnipeg bench were all my boys like Gerald Wilcox and Alf and all the guys I knew were just killing themselves laughing.
Now, out of now Hamilton's supposed to host the Grey Cup this year. Let's hope that there's a season. I got 2 questions for you.
Sure.
Are they going to, if we don't know what this virus is going to do, we don't know. It looks like we're going in the right direction in terms of vaccinations, but if for whatever reason the CFL has to cancel this season, is it like the is that the icing on the cake in terms of the league's future if they lose another season here without federal government help? In your opinion?
I don't think so. I think people are pretty aware that these are just incredible circumstances, and CFL wouldn't be the only business that struggles through this. My hope is that the vaccinations are taken care of. We get rolling. We have some semblance of a season, and we do have a Grey Cup game in Hamilton because it brings a sense of norm to football fans and to the country. But I think if we continue to make progress, we find ourselves getting on the other side of this coronavirus, this global pandemic, then even if the league doesn't, I still see them. What I'd see them doing is probably starting the next season earlier, and ramp things up. But then really have an off season where they can really market and sell and promote it, because they couldn't do it this off season because they had no idea what the next day was going to bring. But by then, if they don't have a season, by the time you say you get to January, maybe even Christmas time, here's your Christmas gift. CFL's coming back, and it's going to come back early, right? And it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving, whatever the marketing thing is going to be. I think people will get excited about it because, and you know what? It'll be about getting out and going to a game. You don't have to be a football fan to go. You just want to go out and hang out with other human beings, drink beer, stare at other guys, girls, and
hey, listen, you mentioned it. You mentioned it. I buy the cheapest ticket on whatever Ticketmaster, $25. It's a nosebleed in the north side, and I don't even go to the seat. I stay on the concourse on the south side. I hang out with my buddies like Brock and his brother, and watch the game from there. And it's a great crowd. It's a different vibe.
Yeah, but you're a big wheel. You show up and hey, Pep's here, Pep's here. Hey, Pep's here. Okay, they can kick the game off now that he's arrived. Yeah. Why is he wearing the Saskatchewan shirt when they're playing Toronto, though? That's the problem. Don't be that guy, though. Don't be that guy to go.
Oh, that's it.
Hey, Brock, I always wonder about those guys. They go to a game, they wear their Saskatchewan jersey, and Ottawa's playing like Calgary.
Yeah,
like, also we get it. You're loyal.
That I don't do.
They're notorious for that too. They wear their Habs jersey at every hockey game that doesn't even involve the Habs. Anyway,
it's like, hey, also let it go. Jeez, we get it.
Wash it for once. All the new stadiums seem to have that terrace now too that are coming out.
Yeah.
They're understanding that they got to make it like an event to get there. You know what I mean? And Brock, that's how you're going to get people that are involved.
That was my last question. Is so the league obviously has done a great job in out with the old, in with the new, in Winnipeg, in Saskatchewan, Ottawa, relatively new. Have you been to all these stadiums? Toronto, yeah, sure. Have you been to all these new domes, and which one's the nicest?
You know, they said a lot of great things about Winnipeg, but I've also know that the beer line was really long.
Mm-hmm. That's never good.
BC Place upgraded. Now, I'm not sure if you've been there since the upgrades.
Nope.
But they've changed it so it's only the lower bowl. But they've opened up the top where you can actually see the skyline of the city from the stands beyond. So it's really cool, that West Coast vibe, which is
they just changed the whole roof entirely because that thing was a sheet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they did.
And Toronto, that's good for the CFL when like the Sky Dome and the BC Place, where you can fit 60,000, but you're only getting 20.
Big O.
Yeah,
only about 5 in there.
But no, I love the Sky Dome because they had the roof open. You can see the CN Tower and the whole bit. But we had this defensive lineman named Mike Jones. He's from the Bronx, from New York, and we called him Jumbotron because every time he'd make a play, he'd get up and look at this replay in the Jumbotron. Meanwhile, the huddles are moving for the next play, and the whole game we're watching game film, and you see him run back, watch his play, run back. One of the funniest things we ever saw. But I also like Hamilton only because it's such an upgrade from Ivor Wynne Stadium that looked like the stadium from The Longest Yard, where all it was missing was the gun turrets. Brock, you've been to Hamilton and Ivor Wynne.
Yeah,
and they got the NASCAR speed walls 3 yards off the sideline.
The new one's really nice. I've coached there.
Yeah,
some of the whatever OPC stuff or OPFL. Yeah. There's some sort of championship I was coaching there, and it was in Hamilton multiple years. And it's kind of cool because it had like, I don't know, almost like a Green Bay vibe where you're kind of in the middle of housing developments and communities, and you kind of turn and there's the stadium. Yeah. And is
it the same? Is it where Ivor Wynne used to be? I think it is.
Yeah, but
it's
a different
really,
direction. Like, so I forget. It's pretty windy, and I think that has to do with whichever way it was facing.
No, I always hated Calgary and Edmonton only because the elevation, the air quality was different in both cities, and Edmonton, you weren't allowed day before, you weren't allowed on the Commonwealth Field. So you spent the first quarter trying to get the right cleats playing against the Eskimos and Edmonton Commonwealth. I always hated Calgary because you come out in Calgary and you felt like, I'm going to score 7 touchdowns today because you're wheeling around. The air quality is great. Then you finish warm-ups and you have to go back up that ramp and come back down the ramp to the field. And by then you're gassed. And that hairy furball Flutie, who never wore a belt with his jeans, he and his compatriots would go and score 50 points in the first half. So you spend the second half trying to figure out where you're going to go for drinks.
Good Lord.
That's amazing.
Real quick.
The stories I could tell you, boys.
I could just imagine.
There will be follow-up shows that will just be Ken and Rare Unplugged.
Yes.
For those who don't know, Ken now runs his own leadership coaching business and pep. He's got the email address ken@kenofrare.com.
That's my goal. That's my life goal.
I'm just jealous. He needs to get a pep@cariotti.com, whatever he wants to call it. But to wrap up on the expansion thing, just the last thing.
Yeah, sure.
If they merge, not expansion, merge. If they merge, what are the 3 main aspects of the CFL right now that they cannot change?
Good question.
Tradition or whatever. What are the 3 that are like the most important in your opinion for the CFL to retain?
3 downs. Has to be 3 downs. Keep the special teams. I think you can tweak the special teams, but 3 downs for sure. The Canadian content has to stay. Even though after the first year or two, it might put the Canadian teams at a competitive disadvantage because the American teams aren't going to sign Canadian players. So Correct. That's a 6 one, half dozen the other. That's a real tough one because you want to stay true to the Canadian content. But I believe in the Canadian players. So I think the Canadian players will compete and do fine. They're playing positions that are not traditionally Canadian positions now. It used to be they were a fullback, they were offensive linemen, they were 1 slot back, they were a nose tackle, 1 linebacker, and a free safety. But now you're seeing guys playing those other skilled positions, which really helps in terms of the ratio. So Canadian content, 3 downs, and I think they should pay every slot back 10% more than any other player on the field.
Retroactive to the 80s.
Retroactive, exactly.
But one thing that will change, and people are talking about the dimensions of the field, and some of these stadiums that they go to, if they're in the XFL, they can't go 65 yards wide. They can't go the big end zones. We played in some stadiums where they had that Home Depot fake grass that you put on your deck, and that was in the end zone. And you're trying to figure out what cleats because you're on turf for half the field and you're on grass for the other field. And it was tough. So the dimensions of the field, I think, will certainly change only because they're not going to rebuild stadiums. They're not going to take seats out of some of these old stadiums that they're going to play in.
Easier to go smaller than it is to go bigger in some of those places.
Yeah, and maybe that's the case. Maybe they go 60 and change the end zones a little bit. Maybe move the goalposts.
Well, I think I agree with you. I think the Grey Cup's got to stay. I think that's still got to be the championship, whatever happens to be the merger. I think the Grey Cup has a long enough tradition it should stay. The Canadian ratio, same thing. And I kind of like the clock in the CFL where it's not.
Yeah. You know
what? Big fan. Big fan.
You got to have the one more snap at zeros for it to count or whatever.
It's probably that might be my biggest argument with the NFL. If you told me one thing about the NFL that gets me mad, rule wise, it is that. It is the fact that if you don't have all your timeouts with 2 minutes left and you're down by so many points, you're done. Like you're taking a knee and it's over. And then in the CFL, it seems like it's never over, which is kind of cool.
And you want that dramatic end to the game like they have in the NBA and they have in other sports, like in hockey with you're tied. Okay, we're going to go to a 3-on-3 shootout. We're going to do the overtime, whatever. And how many times even if you watch the NCAA college football games, the quarterback gets to center, he starts calling a bunch of Canadians and they stops, and everybody on the offensive team does this and looks over at the bench, and they got giant cards and signals coming in so they can run an RPO, right? It didn't make any sense. I think the clock is a big one, and that clock that's a killer for a lot of Americans who come up here, because not only do they have to play offense or defense with that clock, but now they have to play specials, and a lot of good football players have fallen to the wayside because they just didn't have the stamina. It is tough to do.
Yeah.
Somebody also posted they didn't accept the StreamYard conditions, so I don't have your name. I apologize, but the goalposts have to move back. They didn't ever make sense to have them in the way, which I kind of agree. And as a receiver, you probably were always conscious of where those were and not making sure you ran it or making sure you didn't run into them.
That's a big end zone for the back, though.
A buddy of mine, Gerald Alphen, who's just a great player. He played for the Saints as well, and he beat Scott Flagel 3 times on post routes. 3 touchdowns, but the third one, the only thing that hit him was the goalpost, and almost killed him.
Harold Alphen, he was with that Baltimore Stallions team too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was at that. Yeah, and he was Winnipeg, and he was here in Ottawa when I first got to Ottawa. And he was the first receiver I watched. And I'd seen some guys in Saskatchewan, but they had Elgard and Fairholm, where they were receivers, but they weren't those dynamic guys. Watching Don Narcisse running routes where he could stop on a dime. The only guy who was better than him was Tony Champion, but watching Gerald Alphen run routes and do his thing, left me slack jawed. And then I remember Steve Goldman, he said he got me and Gerald Wilcox and the young receivers. He goes, "Come on, meatheads, we're going to watch some video, watch some tape." And he puts in this VHS tape. That's how old I am. And it's the Edmonton Eskimos with Warren Moon at quarterback, right? And a training camp one-on-ones. So now you're watching, and these names you probably will never remember, but Brian Kelly and Marco Sinclair. And Brian Kelly would run an out route, and it's hard to describe, but most guys just run upfield and run the out. But his first steps were so hard inside that the corner would chase him. Then he hit the brakes and go back to the out. And so the corner would say, okay, when he does it, I'm going to stay here because I know he's coming back to me. And Brian would do the same stem, and then he'd go to the in. And he was just so dynamic. And people say, well, why was Warren Moon so successful when you have a guy like Brian Kelly running routes? It was an enlightenment. It was like going to
Fred Biletnikoff out there. He was he was so good.
That's how he was. And you look at a lot of the receivers now, these young receivers and smaller receivers, and they're guys who can jitterbug. They can mambo in a payphone booth. And Kelly wasn't your typical NFL receiver, but boy, maybe the best one I ever watched running routes.
I remember seeing him as a kid. My dad pointed him out a bunch of times when he was like, "This guy's killing us." Like,
and he looked like Howdy Doody.
What was it? Marco Sinclair was he the original mullet?
Yeah, he was the original mullet.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, their Sinclair was there. Konahowski was there. They had Fryer there. Tommy Scott. They had Emilio Fraietta and Waddell Smith. Waddell Smith was on that team.
That's an incredible squad right there. No wonder Warren Moon leads. I think Warren Moon leads all-time football player, professional football player in passing yards. Is he not?
Did AC not beat him? Is AC not the guy now?
Oh, that's a good question.
AC may have beat him.
Yeah,
but. Keep in mind, he was also handing the ball off to Jim Germany and Neil Lumsden, and they always had the great Canadians at Edmonton. And that was often the difference when they go to the Grey Cup, is their Canadians were a little better than the other team's Canadians.
Awesome.
Okay, we can go on, and we will expand this with you. We're going to keep you on if you don't mind. We've been doing this GOAT of GOATs. So the score had this GOAT of GOATs bracket.
Yeah.
And we have whittled it down. And we're going to get into the semifinals real quick. So you can kind of see what the bracket is. We've already taken Jordan, Tiger Woods, Usain Bolt moved on for us over Tom Brady, Muhammad Ali. So Bolt and Ali will be against each other. Messi beat Ronaldo again. Potato, I think. And Federer squeaked by Phelps in that one. And then we have Wayne Gretzky and LeBron James.
You gave Gretzky the easy round one, didn't you?
Right? We didn't make this one up. So this was, again, it's the score that had picked it. but we figured instead of going by the vote and seeing what they did, we were going to have a discussion and figure out where we're at. So we're going to pick 2 of them today, and we'll get your thoughts on that as well. So I don't know which one we want to do, Pep.
Let's do right side bracket.
Oh, what's that now?
That was the Gretzky LeBron.
So you want the greatest one on each side, one on either?
Yeah, here, I'll bring that back up. So now it's Gretzky versus LeBron James. So it's in the semifinals, Gretzky versus LeBron James, and we have Messi versus Federer. So let's start with Messi versus Federer. Who would you choose to go on in that? We have one of the most elite soccer players to ever play the game in recent history, and Roger Federer. His record is
still going, by the way.
Yeah, still going.
Yeah. I think Federer.
Yeah, Pep.
Oh yeah. I mean, Federer. Geez, he's rehabbing an injury, but he plans on playing all the. If he wins even one more Grand Slam this year, I mean, he's going to solidify himself as probably the best tennis player to ever play, at least in the men's bracket. So,
which is impressive. Like I grew up through the Agassi, Pete Sampras type era or whatever, and Sampras was one of those guys too. And you're just what Federer's doing against Nadal's and those kind of guys. It's just
what I miss. I miss the old Sports Illustrated magazine, because we get it, and there'd be the obvious story. Like if it was baseball season, it'd be the story on the Cubs or whoever. But you also had those extra stories that brought Europe to you. So like you learn about Bjorn Borg, you learned about some of these European athletes that you normally would never have gotten because you only had 3 channels on your TV, right?
Something
Actually,
like that.
Pep just got a whole bunch of old Sports Illustrated from a buddy of ours, and he dropped some college football stuff off me. So I've been going through the fact. I even had to Google and say, is this the same guy? I would look at the SEC who was coming back, and Freddie Kitchens was the quarterback for Bama, and I was like, hold on a sec. I had to Google the picture. I'm like, to make sure, is this the same Freddie Kitchens who's coaching Cleveland? And looks like I thought he was an offensive lineman. And no, he's the quarterback for Alabama back in whatever it was, 97 or something. Anyway, it's
so we agree on Federer.
We agree on Federer. I don't think that we don't give soccer nearly enough credit here. I will be the first to admit, but I also give more points to the solo athlete versus the team athlete. I still feel like there's something there, and that's where the Brady Usain Bolt discussion came in, where Brady, yes, he won 7, but Bolt is on another level. And from like an athlete standpoint, I just thought, and we all agreed anyway, but that's where that kind of came from.
And hey, bringing it back to Federer just for a second, like a 5-set match, if it's going 6-4, 6-4, 6-5, 7-5, whatever it is, it's 5 hours. Sometimes they're 4 or 5 hour matches, and you've got no time to rest. You cross over every third point. You might have a sip of water, but you are on there. It's a marathon, and you got to do that for 2 weeks. Like, it's incredible. It's actually incredible.
And you got to serve a ball in 5th set, for example, at 100, whatever it is, kilometers an hour that they're serving this thing up at. You got to serve it up the same way you did in the first set. And it's not like you can't go to the bullpen. Hey, give me the lefty. Right. You get some guy who's going to throw it 60 miles an hour. There's such a contrast. It's just a battle of attrition tennis.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
All right, so Federer, that was an easy discussion, maybe. Wayne Gretzky versus LeBron James.
Oof. Wow.
I gotta go Gretzky. Because there's so many great basketball players out there. That could be Magic Johnson in that spot. That could be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That could be a lot of other basketball players. But if you're going to put a hockey player in there, there's only really 2 hockey players you can put in there. Gretzky and Lemieux.
Lemieux was put up against MJ in round 1.
Yeah.
So he was kind of destined to probably lose that.
I think Gretzky's the choice there. Because of what Gretzky did for hockey in the States as well. Yeah,
Pep.
Well,
you're a big Laker fan. Big.
I am. LeBron is one of those players that he's changed the way teams play and teams defend. But Gretzky has 2,070 career points. I mean, he's so far ahead of the next guy. it's unbelievable what he accomplished. And I think he had 4 seasons where he had 200 points. His first 4 seasons or something ridiculous. It's untouchable, some of those records. Whereas LeBron, when LeBron's story's all done, we might be having a different conversation. But right now, if you tell me to pick right now, I have to go Gretzky.
Does the argument with LeBron that he went to teams, he went to Miami, he had Bosch, he had D Wade, then he went back to Cleveland. He goes to teams where they have studs, where your chances of winning are great. It's not like he went to Milwaukee and he carried a team on his back. He did go to Minnesota and carry a team on his back and win a championship.
The championship he won in Cleveland, he had Kyrie. And the rest were really just accessories. Kevin Love was a serviceable power forward, but he was not very athletic. And then you had J.R. Smith and you had Iman Shumpert, just a lot of compliments. And then one of his titles in Miami, I mean, it was really him and Wade. Bosch was like a second or third tier star, but it was him and Wade, and they had a shooter in Ray Allen. So for him to get up and go to these teams in order to win championships, I don't know. There've been instances of that in the past. I mean, I can't hold that against him. But I won't have him beat Gretzky.
No, Gretzky didn't win with any other team, did he?
Just Edmonton.
Edmonton, which again, if you look at the lineup for Edmonton at the time and the guys that went on they still won the Stanley Cup the year he was traded, I think.
Yeah, I think McSorley had that illegal stick. Remember that penalty?
I remember it very well because I was watching it with my mother, and as a big Habs fan, and as a gutsy call by Jacques Demers, I tell you.
Well, Wayne Gretzky had the illegal high stick to Doug Gilmour, which got to the final. So tit for tat.
Hey, when you mentioned J.R. Smith, have you seen that Kevin Hart J.R. Smith in the cold tub bit?
It's incredible.
I haven't
when they talk about LeBron.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
LeBron, it had me in tears. Have you seen it, Brock?
No, I'm gonna write it down.
Oh my God,
it's so funny when Kevin Hart's doing that impression of LeBron playing cards.
Well, go back to the XFL. Kevin Hart and The Rock have they do a lot of one-on-one stuff where it's like there's one where they do dad jokes. I think there is one when they're in the hot tub, and it's great stuff.
Pretty funny stuff.
All right, so we're going with Gretzky. I would agree. Okay. Have to keep him on there. Like you said, we'll see what happens with LeBron overall, but what Gretzky did for the game of hockey, and actually Ken brings up a good point with like you could put a couple basketball players there. Again, at a show we want to do, and Pep want to talk that we can talk about a whole bunch of like sports that have evolved over time and which ones have evolved the most. We talk about the hockey goalie being probably one of the positions in sports that has evolved the most over time. I think basketball is getting to a point where I'm watching highlights last night of Siakam, like kind of spin. He goes up like super awkward, and he's still able to dunk it because he's just so tall and able to jump. And they're all like that. It's almost like I want to see the rim be 10.5 or 11 feet now and make it evolve like the players have evolved, kind of thing. But anyway, we're leaving Gretzky, so we're gonna have Gretzky versus Federer next time.
Oh boy!
And then we got to talk the other side, which we'll do that on the next one. You have, again, in the effort of Ken's got kids and stuff too. We're taking a lot of time here. You have. Is it a game or something?
Well, it's just, you know what? I pieced together basically the who's who of CFL players throughout I'd say dating back to like the late 80s, except for maybe one or two players here. And basically and this might be difficult because a lot of these guys are probably your buddies, but this is pick your offensive dream team. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name off two guys. I'm going to say Joe versus Jim, and you got to pick one to create your dream team. Okay. Now, typically, of course, a team would have 2 or 3 quarterbacks. In the quarterback section here, I have 10 quarterbacks. Basically, you're going to pick 5 of those 10. Okay. So question 1, who are you taking, Anthony Cavillo or Warren Moon?
Warren Moon.
Oh, Doug Flutie or Damon Allen?
Damon Allen.
Oh, bro.
I had my only season of 1,000 yards, and Damon's my boy. So
enough said.
Hey, that changes your opinion pretty quick.
Absolutely,
if somebody's feeding you the ball, if Scott Endicott would have been my quarterback if I was playing touch football still, that's what I would have chosen.
Jeff Garcia or Hank Burris?
Ooh, I don't think Garcia gets enough credit. I go with Garcia.
Ooh, I agree with you.
He was
Danny McManus or Ricky Ray?
Oh, two of the best guys ever.
Mm.
Ricky Ray, because of that corner route he throws.
It's a good ball.
Nobody can stop it. You know it's coming, and you can't do a damn thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Brock crossed the dance floor at the school dance. Asked the girl for dance. You can do nothing about it.
Nothing about it.
Stairway to Heaven's playing. You can do nothing about it.
Here he comes. And last one, Matt Dunnigan or Tracy Ham?
Dunnigan.
Yeah.
Reason
Dunnigan.
being is Dunnigan's that type of quarterback. Tracy's a great guy. I've had some quarterbacks where they wouldn't buy you a beer after a game, where Dunnigan say, I'm not just going to buy you a beer. We're going to go pick up 10 cases. Dunnigan was just – I remember we lost the Eastern Final in Winnipeg to them. And we probably didn't belong there because we'd beaten Ottawa the week previous. And Ottawa probably would have beat or given Winnipeg a bigger fight. We didn't have much of a game against Winnipeg. But I went into the locker room to say bye to Alfred and Wilcox and some of the guys I knew. And I'm sitting in their locker room just nourishing a beer. And we're going to fly out a couple hours. And out comes Dunnigan in the shower, buck naked. And he screams, "Avrar!" And he walks straight towards me. But he doesn't go around the beer coolers. He crawls over top of them naked, puts his feet in them, comes out, and it's just Matty. It's just Matty all the way. So again, all those great personalities.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, running backs. There's not it's a smaller group here.
Yeah.
Mike Pringle or Pinball Clemens?
Pinball, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah. Okay.
Pinball may only run for 50 yards and the team win, and he's excited. If Pringle runs for 50 and the team loses, and wins, he's pissed off. If Pringle runs for 150 and the team loses, he's still okay.
Interesting. I did not know that about
Always
Mike Pringle.
smiling.
Didn't know that about me. Okay, Kelvin Anderson or John Cornish?
Calvin Anderson.
George Reed or Willard Reeves?
I'm going to go George.
Yeah.
Even though Willard was a stud.
Willard was a stud. Willard was a big back too. That was a bruising team.
That Winnipeg team going into the Winnipeg and playing against
cold.
Them.
All right, we got
Walby and all those guys.
Oh, Miles Gurrell. All right, we're off to wide receivers, then linemen, and then we're out of here. Okay, wide receivers: Milt Stiegel or Geroy Simon?
Neither.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
All right, going off the board.
Okay. All right.
Both great, but I think there were some other guys who did some things athletically. They didn't put the numbers up, but they were better receivers.
All right, maybe they're in
right.
I
like it.
Let's see if there are any other groupings.
I like it. Rocky DiPietro or Ray Elgard? You played with Rocky.
Yeah, and I lost the All-Canadian, the top Canadian, to Ray, and I was in training camp with Ray. Ray was a game changer. Ray was just
that's what I'm wearing, by the way.
And here's the funny thing: he and Fairholm didn't get along.
Oh no,
they were polar opposites. Fairholm hung out with Tom Burgess all the time. Burgess was a Colgate guy, right? And they talked golf all the time. Whereas Kent Austin and Elgard, they rolled together. And so there's that thing in Saskatchewan. Yeah, really cool. But Elgard for sure.
But they won the cup with Austin under center. That in Toronto. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
interesting.
Well, no receiver I might go with instead of Geroy, and who was the other one?
Milt Stiegel.
Stephon Jones.
Stephon Jones, great.
One of my
great
favorites.
player in Ottawa.
Or scratch Steph. Earl Winfield.
Earl Winfield on the other side of Tony Champion.
Skeletor.
What a team. Mike Kerrigan. They had a great team. Who was the running back for them? You named him earlier, I think.
McAdoo was in that group.
McAdoo.
But Earl Winfield, quick true story. Our new travel guy, for some reason, Brock, booked us in a hotel, not here in Ottawa. We played the Rough Riders, but in Hull. The bus stop, guys dropping off bags, and they were gone. Earl was my roommate. I didn't see him until the next day, an hour before bus going to the stadium. He came in with this blonde. He said, "Make sure the bus doesn't leave without me." And we got up to the stadium, got him there in time, and he caught 12 for like 180 and 2 touchdowns. And it beat a guy so bad for Ottawa. We're on the bench, and Earl goes, "Man, that mofo bit sink, line, and hooker." Some of the great guys ever.
That's pretty great.
Earl Winfield, my receiver.
Earl Winfield. All right, so I'll just scrap Stiegel and Simon and put Earl in there. Alan Pitts or Daryl Mitchell?
Ooh, Pitts.
Darren Flutie or Kenneth?
Mookie was a stud, but it's either Pitts or DK from Toronto, DK Smith.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to just ask him. DK something for Toronto was awesome. What was his last name?
DK was a stud, yeah. But in Calgary, though, they had Sapunjis as well.
Oh, another great slot back, eh?
That's the guys who can play, yeah.
Darren Flutie or Ken Evrer?
Flutie.
Yeah. Okay.
Flutie.
All right. I don't know. Yeah. I have Evrer on my list, but that's okay. All right. Tony Champion or Don Narcisse?
Narco. If Champ stayed healthy and didn't smoke as much dope,
he might be there.
It might be them, but it was Narco.
That's
Narco
why he didn't feel his ribs in that catch in the Grey Cup.
Oh, that was one of the greatest catches ever, without a doubt. But Narco can just do stuff.
Yeah. I just remember them. I was 89, 90. I just remember all the offensive players for Saskatchewan wearing those brown mitts, those the
glass cutters. And your hands stunk. James Ellingson, Bresciani, all those guys, because they didn't breathe, so your hands stunk. But a lot of guys will run one-on-one routes in practice, and you go, wow, but they don't do it within the constraints of the game, except for Don Narcisse.
Okay.
Narco would he'd get lined up and it'd scare the crap out of guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that loose neck celebration.
Oh, yeah. You can do that pretty good. I've seen you do that, Brock, actually. All right, moving on. Greg Ellingson or Andy Fantuz?
I'm going to go with Ellingson. Only because Fantuz went to Western.
Fair.
I was his roommate when I was all Canadian. He went down. He was up for the rookie, OUA rookie or something. Yeah. We were roommates. And you talk about Winfield having fun. Fantuz was gone. Him and Brad Smith of Queens were out, and they came back with. I almost introduced themselves as I thought that was their mothers, but it wasn't.
And Fantuz is a real ugly-looking guy, right? So,
Brandon Banks or Arlen Bruce?
Banks, because of the special teams, but I wouldn't even. I'd have him against Rocket Ishmael.
Better comparisons.
Still go with Banks, because Banks has become a really good receiver. I told him that when they played here 2 years ago, and they finally got a chance to play receiver, because he was just a really spoiled brat, ready playing special teams and crying and temper tantrums. Then they put him at receiver and gave him more responsibility, and he really excelled. So I'd go Banks, because Rocket was only here for a couple of years.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to zip through the kickers really quickly. Louis Passagle or Dave Ridgway? Basically, the GOAT. Kickers, yeah.
Gotta go Ridgway, because he had to kick in Regina versus in the Dome.
Agreed. Battle of the Pauls here. Osbaldiston or McCallum?
Who got the poop on their front lawn?
McCallum.
I'd go Ozzy, but I guess Hank Alissic's not part of that conversation.
Hank Alisic, punter?
He's a punter, isn't he?
Was Alisic a punter?
He was a great punter. He also kicked field goals when he played for Toronto, but he was 19 in Edmonton, winning cups, driving a Cadillac. And on top of that, God decided to really bless him.
This is Hank Olisic?
Hank
Hank
Olisic.
Olisic. Tough life. 19, driving a Cadillac, wearing Grey Cup rings, and the guy was a tripod.
I was going to say, you finish your sentence, and I know every listener's like,
what does that mean?
Hank Olisic.
And Brock knows what I'm talking about. He's like, okay, one of those guys.
okay. I
Let's
play with
punt.
guys called D-Train. And
Let's punt.
For different reasons.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Mark McLaughlin or Troy Westwood?
Wow.
These are basically the top 6 kickers on when if you Google CFL kickers. These are the guys.
This is the Banjo Bowl thing, though.
Yeah, this
right?
is it.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I know it's. I think Westwood and even punting Bob Cameron, because they had both tough places to kick, but I think Westwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because Westwood could take a punch. Was it somebody came on and just knocked him? Silly.
No, that was Toronto. That was
wasn't that Arlan Bruce? Wasn't that Arlan Bruce involved in that?
No, it's Robert
Brown?
Robert Baker, I think.
Baker.
And he started. It was Noel Prefontaine.
Noel Prefontaine, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And Prefontaine was a big guy.
Yeah, but if you got a name like Noel, you don't get anybody's face, right?
Tyrone with your Christmas decoration still up in the back.
You like that? Just lazy. Just lazy.
Awesome. All right. Now we're going to finish off with the offensive line here. Brock, you might want to chime in if you like. Brian Chew or Rod Conop? These are centers.
He's a Laurier guy, and good looking.
Yeah.
That Chew didn't have that for him, but Chew's my boy.
Chewy's a great guy, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Chewy.
At tackle, Chris Walby or Miles Gurrell?
Ooh, Miles was a teammate. They both played
Winnipeg together.
Yeah, I think Walby. He went down with a knee injury. We played them, and the whole place went quiet. It was the Eastern Final, I think it was, and they brought the stretcher out. So the whole place is quiet. He's trying to bend his knee. And he stands up. He's bending his knee. And he sees a stretcher, and he kicks the stretcher, kicks it away. Place goes friggin' nuts. They go on to win by 30, and he's a player of the game.
I still remember him.
That's amazing.
His first mic interview, whatever. Like he was doing the broadcasting right for a while, and he'd hold the mic, and his fingers are going every which way from Sunday. Like
I know.
Just you say that's an offensive lineman right there.
Bad bananas.
Horrible.
Bad bananas. Chris Walby. Okay.
They're all big GG alumni though too, right?
So who's our guards?
We're right there. Ozuma Okeke or Gene Makowski?
Makowski.
Uzo had some of the best feet, and he was very undersized for a tackle, but had a great punch and great feet, and that's why he ended up having such a great career. He also put a dead fish in my helmet during training camp. That was part of it.
He played. Was he a guard?
No, he played tackle for Montreal.
What's amazing is when you see some of these guards, and they're able to move. They're so big, but they're able to move the way they do in that small space, right? Because you got guys trading paint over here. You got guys trading paint over here. You're trying to pick up blitzers and stuff. There's a lot of crap going on, right?
Yeah.
Where centers, for the most part, unless the guy's nose up, center's going to have some help. But those
that's
guards,
where I thought Chew did very well, because Chew would the scheme, he wasn't getting help. He was either helping or it's the levels of being able to be at the front and say, you know what, it's not here. I got to drop back and then be outside. And it's that spatial awareness from playing those levels that was really impressive from the Chew standpoint that I remember seeing. And I was like, wow, he's really getting back for a center and then out to help. Like it's that kind of stuff that just goes unnoticed for normal people, it seems. But
and you have to do it in practice at game speed, just for a bit, just to get used to it. It usually leads to at least 3 fights during the season, because especially midway, the guys are just tired. They don't want to be trading paint, but you need to do that kind of stuff. A guy that we didn't mention, and rest in peace, I'm going to miss him a lot, is Chris Schultz.
Oh yeah,
Schultz was he was such a competitor, but he was friends with almost everybody on the other team. He didn't have to spend time with a guy. He'd see a guy and say, "Hey, Ken, what's going on? Hey, Schultz, and you just get along. That's the cool thing about playing in team sport, especially at this level, where you'll see guys and you're complete. One guy grew up in California, one guy's in Texas, one guy played in Guelph, one guy went to Laval, but you get on the field and you see each other after the game, and there's that connection. And that's what you miss the most. My dad played pro baseball, and he had Pete Rose and Richie Allen for teammates. He had never told me a story about a score of a game, but he can tell you about the people like it happened yesterday.
That's the beauty of sports, Ken. That's what brings everybody together.
Yeah.
Sports.
But how the hell are you going to forget Hank Alyssa come out of the shower? It's something that's burned into your eyes, your brain.
I'm never going to forget it, and I wasn't even there. So, okay, Roger Aldag or Scott Flory?
Dag.
Yeah.
He played like 20. He played for 24 years all day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The only reason why I stayed in Saskatchewan, the only reason I stayed in Saskatchewan as long as I had before they traded me to Ottawa was that Aldag was doing kickoff cover mullet. And the guy had been in the league for around 14 years by then. So I raced out there. I was smart enough to race out there and get him out of there. So the vets didn't bust my chops at all during training camp. And it helped that everybody who got 2 beer tickets at the end of the day in training camp, I just gave my tickets to the vets every day. Every day. And they took care of me.
Very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of offensive linemen. Like it was a long list, so I had to sort of narrow it down to the guys I knew, guys I'd seen. But Pierre Vercheval or Brendan Labatt?
Labatt was a stud. There's so many of those great Saskatchewan linemen.
Yeah.
But Vercheval I'm going to go with because there's a French-Canadian kid who went to Western, barely speak English and went to Western. And he was part of a great offensive line at Western when I was at Laurier. And they had Blake Marshall for a running back.
Oh, another house.
Oh, and Irv Damon was part of that offensive line. You know, Brock, you know Irv.
Yeah.
And Irv's favorite word is
Irv, the only guy, and I say it, we go down to Cincinnati. I did when I was starting to do an O lineman podcast. He was the first interview I had. So I have audio of him singing his like walk up song kind of thing in the back. Anyway, hilarious. But we'd go to Cincinnati for that offensive lineman coaches clinic thing, whatever, and we go out to eat and stuff. And he's got phenomenal stories. So he's got great stories. But what was I couldn't keep my eyes and my attention away from is that he would be telling these stories while wolfing down huge meals, and he would not miss a bite, or you wouldn't even tell he had his mouth full, but it was just constantly going in while he was telling the story. And I was like, how do you even do that? I can't even breathe and talk at the same time. And he's just wolfing this down, but amazing guy.
He chirped me the Laurier Western conflict rivalry, and he chirped me. He's like, "Hey, Avrera," and you know Irv. He's got this head, but his neck. He wore this neck roll, but he had like 6 neck rolls, I swear, coming on his pads because his neck was so long. So I called him Beaker from the Muppets. Hey, Beaker. Right? And he looked at me, and I think he was stunned because Irv's a pretty intelligent guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's a smart guy. And I think he was impressed when I came up with something from way out in left field from Beaker from the Muppets. And from that point on, he and I just connected.
I still remember being out. Carl told me, one of our friends at Coaches Auto.
I know Carl.
Like he was a very big football fan, lineman fan. So I remember we were on the field when I was younger. It was high school. I think that's where I met Carl. And he was talking about knowing Irv Damon. And I was like, okay, whatever. We're on the field. And Carl, hey, Irv. And then Irv, hey, Carl. He's just like Eeyore. Kind of like walk out the game. He's just exhausted. And I was so impressed. Carl's got his Zubaz pants on, right? With the big curly hair and the big glasses. It was
Love that.
an awful time for that.
Irv's one of those guys you never forget.
Yeah.
Ken, I'm gonna end my segment here with you mentioned all the old CFL teams when they expanded down into the States.
Yeah.
Can you guess the quarterbacks? I'll just say the roster and you can guess the quarterback. There's 4 or 5 of them who definitely played in the CFL. A Las Vegas Posse.
Calvillo.
Yep. Sacramento Gold Miners.
Archer.
You got it.
Oh, nice.
The Baltimore football team for the first year or whatever. I know that was the whole thing with the Colts.
Was it Tracy Ham?
It was Tracy Ham. The Shreveport Pirates.
they had a bunch that were down there.
And
I know
a couple came back to play in Ottawa, didn't they?
Yeah, Eero Sanchez was one of them.
Yes.
There was a guy. Oh, he's a coach now with the 49ers. Oh, this is going to bother me.
Is Curtis listening? Because Curtis has the Shreveport Pirates helmet. Maybe there's a name on the back.
That's amazing.
He took
No,
that.
there's a
I'll give you a hint. It was he went to New Orleans and Ditka was fed up with him and all the other guys with the same name.
Was Bear there?
No.
Who's? But there was an NFL quarterback that went down there. Oh, this is going to bother me.
Yeah, you're thinking of the same guy. You're thinking of the guy.
I was going to say Steve DeBerg, but it's not. It's not Bobby Bear.
It wasn't a lefty.
No, it was a righty. He was a gunslinger.
This is going to bother me.
Not a good one, but he was a gunslinger. Well, we'll come back to it. I'll let you think about it. San Antonio Texans or Texans.
He played here in Ottawa. After Archer played there as well.
Yeah.
But there was a guy before him. But Archer played, I think, the second year of the Texans. Right? Because Archer was in Sacramento.
Yep.
And then he went over to San Antonio.
Yep.
With a pretty good football team over there.
Who was it?
Yeah. We'll come back to it. Birmingham Barracudas.
Matt Dunnigan.
That was Dunnigan. And Memphis Mad Dogs.
That was Damon.
The Texans, it was Jimmy Kemp. Okay. Jimmy Kemp. Yeah. And the Shreveport Pirates, it was Billy Joe Tolliver.
That's it.
Billy Joe Tolliver.
He had one of those water boy, Bobby Boucher type names.
Oh, but absolutely.
If you look at the roster, look at how many players were there, how many quarterbacks were there, because they had a bunch of guys.
They did have a bunch of guys, and they went with him.
But of all those towns, they're the best city. I'll never forget Shreveport, Louisiana, because we're going to walk to the restaurant. They said, "Don't you dare! Make sure you get in a cab." So we get in a cab, and the cab looked at us, and it's myself, Wally Zatelli, Richard Nurse, whose son plays in the NHL, Darnell Nurse, and the Nurse family, and Lee Knight. And we get in, and we're gung ho Canadians, thinking this is like a vacation, right? And the guy stops to fill up the car with gas, but keeps the meter running. So Richard Nurse, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. Okay, Richard, you say something about it. Go ahead. So we probably had the best meal we ever had. And I remember we got a different cab coming back, and the guy pulls up and he rolls down his window, and he actually rolled down the window. It wasn't the electric window. He rolled it down and goes, "Hey, you guys the football team?" I said, "Yeah, we are." Okay. Man, what are you doing here playing football in Shreveport, right? He's going on and on. So we started asking a bunch of questions, and we said, "What's it like in Shreveport?" He said, "Man, it's crazy down here." "What do you mean?" He says, "They're always trying to rob you, right?" So what do you mean? He says, "Well, they call me and I show up and they pull out their guns and try to rob me." So we're like, "What do you do?" Because "I'll pull out my gun." And he at least reaches under his seat. And he's got a gun. Like, oh my God. For the
funniest Wild West.
But we had our per diem, and it was all in American. So we gave him $50, said, "Just drive around and show us the place," and made the guy's day.
Beauty. Amazing. All right, Kenny, we've taken plenty of your time. We've taken our listeners' time as well. We're over time. We need to set this up from a podcast standpoint so we can just let you go time-wise. But really appreciate you coming on, sharing your insights from the CFL-XFL merger, some of your career stories and stuff like that, which are great. I could listen to this all night.
Me too.
That being said, we're going to go, obviously, congratulations to, I forgot the Brooke Henderson, Otto's Brooke Henderson won her 10th LPGA Tour event.
That's a crazy stat.
Which is crazy. And Tiger Woods won his 10th at the same age. So obviously huge milestone for Brooke Henderson. Also wanted to give a shout out to a friend of ours. I think everybody here knows him, Keith Hiscox, who celebrates a milestone birthday coming up on Thursday, which is the NFL draft. He's the big 5-0. So happy birthday to Keith. And, he's a part owner of the Crazy Horse as well. So if you're looking to support local and skip the dishes, get some real good meals, some burgers, whatever, Crazy Horse is the place to go. And when this COVID thing does end, we will start doing some live shows from the Crazy Horse as well. But I told him he could pick the going out song. And he said if he ever had a walk-up song or a song for a game, that he wanted Metallica, harvester of sorrow. A little bit off what we normally do, but this is for you, Keith. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week. We're going to cover the NFL draft because it'll have been done. Follow us on Instagram. So we do Instagram Live on Thursday when we're probably dissecting the draft and maybe doing some stuff during it. But appreciate you tuning in. Ken, again, thanks for joining us. Alain, good luck with the draft next week. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Be safe.